Коллеги, пожалуйста, если вы еще не сидите в зале, а кто-нибудь просто ходит по стендам, то сейчас самое время вернуться, потому что сейчас будет такой спикер, которого, ну, я считаю, что люди такого уровня в России в ресерче не были давно, потому что это на самом деле человек, который, ну, создает своими руками маркетинговые исследования будущего. Да? Объясню почему. Это Фрэнк Келли из компании Lightspeed Research. Он директор по стратегии, и он проводит массу экспериментов в области новых типов исследований. И, в общем, он, ну, не знаю, Америка примерно, я думаю, где-то года на 2 впереди в маркет-ресерче. Да? То есть, и здесь, собственно, вот те взгляды, те мнения, те эксперименты, о которых он будет говорить, это то, какими исследованиями будут в ближайшие 5 лет, это точно. И мне кажется, с этой точки зрения, ну, я бы очень советовал его послушать. Он, на самом деле, очень известный человек в американском ресерче. Он долгое время, ну, вот 8 лет подряд он был председателем программного комитета. Такая была главная конференция по диджитал ресерчу, Kantar Digital. И то, что он согласился приехать и выступить перед нами, я считаю, это большая удача. Он будет по-английски выступать, но тоже мы с ним договорились, что он будет говорить очень внятно, аккуратно, чтобы все поняли, услышали. У него есть слайды. Вот, и, в общем, Frank Kelly, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. I trust you said good things about me. And,
Look here, you can sometimes remember click your point to that place, but mine that you can sort of.
Sure, okay. Okay, well, hello everybody. I'm going to talk about a topic that I'm not sure there's talked about much here in Russia. Essentially, you know, a new type of research that I've been doing a lot of research on for maybe about 18 months, which is really incorporating video into our data capture. Really we're using it to replace open-ended questions in quantitative surveys. And we're finding great results with it, and we think it's something that's going to change the way that all of you do research in the very near future. And we're calling that Big Qual, or an example of Big Qual, which is another sort of buzzword that is coming in the industry right now. So I know, I'll just start with a bit of a definition if you haven't heard some of these terms. Everybody knows marketing research, certainly, you know, that it's this linkage between, you know, the manufacturers and the consumers and the people that want to market to them. And we've always defined our industry across, you know, qual and quant. People sort of early on in their career become one or the other. You become a quant person, a qual person. You focus on interviewing and interview focus groups, or you focus on, you know, large quantitative surveys. And really, historically, those groups have been fairly separate. But that's changing very quickly, and there's some new techniques available to help facilitate that change. So Big Qual is really just the combination of these two disciplines. It's really a systematic approach to understanding the why and how of decision making. And we'll dig into this in some detail. So again, further to that discussion, really, you know, there's the quantitative and there's the qualitative. And for the most part, the qualitative research is smaller groups of people that you're researching. Typically more open-ended, you're asking questions. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, the quantitative world is much larger groups of people and more closed-end questions in a survey. And where I think we're heading is sort of that combination, somewhere an integration of those two, for a variety of reasons where people want insights but at scale, and people have really compressed timelines for the research to take place. So there's really not time for sort of a first qual then quant methodology anymore. It's all sort of happening in an integrated way. And that's why I think that researchers from now forward will need to really have both sets of skills to be successful. So some of the things that are going on in the industry, we do see that surveys are changing. They're getting a little bit shorter, but it's a very slow process, much slower than it needs to be. because essentially we're running into what's going to be a wall in that people that want to do surveys on mobile phones, people just do everything on their mobile phone anymore. They don't want to boot up their computer at home at night. And as a result, we're finding that we have to make surveys work better for mobile, and on mobile phones, people won't do much more than a 10, maybe a 15-minute survey. The average survey that I see, my company does, thousands and thousands of surveys. The average we're seeing is about 20 minutes today, and yet the average person on a mobile phone won't do more than about 10 or 15. So pretty much every survey that we do is underrepresented in people that have completed on a mobile device. And I think that's true probably for every panel in the industry. And I think it's a problem. It's a representativity problem, because people that prefer to work on a mobile device aren't necessarily the same as those that use a computer. So the response to that for many companies has been, the best thing is to just change the way you do surveys and cut out some of those open-ended questions, for example, which are problematic on a small device. It's hard to type. People type less words on a mobile phone than they do on a PC in an open-ended question, for example. I've seen that consistently. But my belief is that that's the wrong approach. I think the right approach is instead to say, let's leverage what the mobile phone is really built for and the new capabilities that come with it, and really use those capabilities to get people in an engaged fashion. And you can't get them engaged to do maybe closed-end long surveys, but you can get them to give you some really solid input in the format of video. So as I mentioned, heading towards that wall of where we're going to have a real problem, and that we won't have enough respondents anymore if we don't change our surveys. And the options are to simplify the surveys, and certainly there's plenty that can be done to learn how to ask the questions more succinctly with less words, to find ways to eliminate redundant questions, because many times people ask more or less the same question in several different ways, and we have to be better disciplined at that. I certainly have done a lot of work and we've talked quite a bit about modularizing surveys. There's various ways to break up surveys into different chunks and have different groups of people complete them, and ways to bring that data back together into one data set. It's a complex technique. I'm sure it'll find its way as one of the techniques and one of the solutions, but it won't be for everything. And the third approach is really just to adapt and find more ways to get more information out of people in a shorter time period. And I think, again, video is just one example of how you can do that, along with a number of other techniques that I'll touch on briefly for capturing, like I say, different inputs from people through a mobile phone. So what's happening here, if you're not, in research we have to respond to trends in society. Most of our research methods, much like face-to-face, moving to phones, phones moving to online, online now moving to mobile. Another trend going the next step is video is becoming a major factor in our society. If you look on this dotted line, you can see from 2013 to 2018, there's been about a tripling in the amount of video that transferred across the internet. Video transfers, data transfers, now representing something like 70% of all internet traffic. And they're the biggest part of all the growth in the internet traffic. So what's happening there is really video is what is big data in a way. It's certainly the largest component of data on the internet. And what's going on is, in the other two lines, you all well know on the far axis, that smartphones, now almost half the world population has a smartphone. And similarly, about half the world's population is now a member of social media. And so people are, as part of their daily lives, they have smartphones, they're on social media, and they're sharing video, consuming and collecting, capturing and consuming video. And as that becomes a very commonplace activity, it won't seem so weird to be asked in the middle of a survey, hey, would you mind doing a short video clip to help me better understand your thoughts on a particular topic? And that's what I've seen just in the 18 months I've been doing this already. I've seen willingness to do videos double. And I think it's going to become quite common. I'll get into a few numbers on that in a minute. Again, when I talk about the engagement issue, I've run this study in a number of countries, which is just saying, when you're doing a survey, what else are you doing? And fully 60% of the people, when they're doing an online survey, are doing something else. They're watching TV, they're reading, studying, playing games. They're busy. People multitask. That is part of society as well. The great thing about with video is you really aren't multitasking because you're looking at a camera and you're talking to it, and there's not much else you can be doing. So it's one way to overcome that engagement issue that we have in research. So when I talk about video, what I call video answers, what I'm really looking at then is a way to get this direct link between the people that are producing the product, so the corporate clients, and the person you're trying to get the research from. You know, they can see and hear from their own words of the person exactly what they think. And I find that that's a very powerful way to communicate. And the way that I like to do my research is I use the quantitative data to prove my point, because not everybody's going to do a video, but and you want the data to be proven out through the numerical, quantitative closed-end survey questions. But then once you have the data tables that say that, hey, this is what we're seeing, it's really terrific if you have a video that corresponds with that message. And what I find is, after the fact, it's always the videos and the people that stick in my mind. It's not the graphs and the tables and the charts. So it's just the way that I learn, I guess. I've also found that, back to open-ended questions, we've all learned that the best way to ask open-ended questions in a survey typically is to ask a very simple question, because people only answer pretty much very simply. That's not the case with video. So rather than asking like several different open-ended questions, what I advocate then is one video question, which ideally should be a more complex question, like thinking about restaurants. When you're trying to choose a restaurant, what things do you think about? The food, the atmosphere, the friends you want to meet with, whatever it might be. So you can ask a more complex several-part question on video, whereas you wouldn't want to do that in an open end. And again, this technique doesn't really cost much. It's really just an incremental spend on top of a quantitative survey. So you pay a little extra to get for extra incentives, but it's a very modest sort of add-on cost to a typical quantitative study. So you're getting some really great qualitative inputs for a very little price. What I also like about video is that it works well across the spectrum of types of research. Again, back to quantitative and qualitative, quantitative. Whether certain types of research tend to be more likely to be completed on a computer. Other things, like in-the-moment stuff, tend to be done more on a mobile phone. Video data capture works equally well, whether it be on a mobile phone or a computer. We get pretty similar successful rates of capturing video. And we find that it works well across a range of different types of studies. This was to be a video, but I connected it onto YouTube, but I can't get internet access, unfortunately. All I was going to demo was, I tend to like to ask in the video questions like how they use a certain product. So in this one I was talking about what are the types of pet toys and pet treats that you use. And people typically say, well, here's my dog Joe, and this dog, he likes this kind of food and that kind of food, and if I don't feed him this for this reason, he plays with this for that reason. After you watch 50 or 100 videos of people telling you about what their dog likes to play with, you get a good feel for it in a way that I don't think you could any other way. So unfortunately, we don't have that to show. One thing about video, and part of the reason I couldn't really show it, is because the files are very large. Even a 90-second clip that I created was 30, 40 megabytes. So it gets very large very quick. So you need a video management tool. And many of the corporate clients out there are acquiring these tools for other purposes. So in other words, what I won't mention company names, but certain big companies are setting up accounts directly with these video technology companies, and then they can manage the access to the videos, whether it be the commercials that they keep, so it's for internal videos as well as for research videos. They can have login, certain people can see the videos for certain brands and not videos for other brands. There's a lot of privacy concerns with video. You can't just share video anywhere. So for example, in the video that I was hoping to show here, I explicitly got consent from the person in the research survey. Said, by the way, I'm going to show this at the Research Expo. Is that okay? Yes. Okay. So a number of big companies, a couple of English companies, a couple of American companies. I'm sure there are Russian companies as well in this field. What they do is they provide that storage of the data and analytic tools along with it. As this videos roll, the words that they say are being spoken, are being printed on the screen below it, so that you can search on any word that's spoken in the course of the videos. You can you can filter as well a range of videos based on whenever they set a certain brand or on certain questions they asked leading up to that, like is it an indoor dog or an outdoor dog? You know, those kinds of questions. You might want to look at the videos that way based on survey questions, based on demographics. You want to see the videos from women 45 to 54. Great. So there's a range of different tools that are available on there. And again, these sort of companies, technologies are especially helpful for large multinational studies where there's translation involved and such, because they'll be talking in one language and the words may be in English or whatever language you choose are going across the bottom. And you can do that research then across multiple languages and very, very easily. You can do a search on whenever people spoke about this brand in Poland or whatever country you're looking at. And one other thing is, typically what a researcher would do with these tools is they would create a show reel. So essentially you go through maybe 100 videos and you pick out the ones where people really had something interesting to say, and then you kind of edit them to get those key points in, and it's a very handy little tool. So I've picked up a lot of tricks along the way on ways to improve the quality of the videos you're getting. A simple set of instructions make a big difference. You know, just telling people, you know, where to sit, the lighting issues, and just by giving the instructions, we're able to improve the quality of the videos considerably. Here's an example of a project I did about 9 months ago, and you can see not everybody's willing to do a video. In this case, about 40% said, yes, I'll do a video, but when it came down to, when the camera was on, you know, not everybody, you know, would actually do it. So this is a drop-off. And then even of those that you received, not all of them are good quality. Some of them that have audio problems or lighting problems or what have you. So, you know, you probably would yield about, today I would say probably, depending on the country, Germany doesn't particularly like video for some reason. Other countries are more willing to do it. Somewhere in the 15 to 20% yield out of the 100% in a survey. So I'm not suggesting that you require video. My suggestion is I use it more like a data infusion, if you will. So I come down in the survey and then I branch. Are you willing to do a survey, yes, a video, yes or no? If yes, then we ask them to consent, and then the camera comes on and they just have to click the button and it starts recording. They click the stop and they go on with the survey. The alternative path, of course, is just the regular open-end text box. So this is why I find video so appealing. You know, essentially, those of you who remember the Caddy days, we used to get really valuable input from that interviewer prompting. You know, unaided, if you remember the movement to online, unaided brand awareness dropped dramatically, you know, when we moved to online, because there wasn't that interviewer effect. Similarly here, when we got to online, the text answers tend to be very brief. They don't always tell you much. With video, though, people go on and on and on, and on and on and on. And this is just, this is a transcription of what somebody would said in the video, as an example. So on average, I'm finding you get about 5 to 7 times more words in a video response than you do in a text open-end text response. So, and it varies again. If you ask it and make it personal, it seems to help. Like, tell me about your particular exercise routine, which is what the last one was about. And we got about 60 words on average. Below that, 13 words is how many we got on the text. And then a different project was, about ad feelings about a certain ad, and we had, again, 44 words versus 10 words. And it's not just more words, it's also more topics being discussed. That's what the code's referring to down below. So more words, more topics, much richer data. And the other interesting thing is, if you're doing a code structure for your open ends anyway, there's no reason you can't just merge these together into one data file, the open-end text and the video text. So I see it as an important component, really, of storytelling. All right, so going back to how we do the field work, I don't know how you're doing it here today, but oh, sorry, thought it was me. The focus groups, typically the first step, and then you design a survey from that, then you do it online, or maybe other method of survey, data provided, report provided, somewhere down the line. I think that a better design is really where you create the online survey as best you can, and then based on, incorporate video in that, and then you're going to find some people that really have something interesting to say. And then take it the other way, use a large group of people, find out the ones that have something interesting to say, and then bring those people back in for more discussions, whether it be a different interview, a more open-ended interview, online focus group, something. So I would invert that process and do first quant, then qual. And I think with that approach, you're going to be able to streamline the research process. Another interesting point, if any of you have done any work with online training, online learning systems, they adapt very quickly to the way that you learn best. And there's all kinds of research around this, and it's really fascinating. This is 10 years of extensive science, or 20 years of extensive science to figure out the best way to do training. I think we need to think about research the same way, that there's everybody has a different way that they communicate, and that the best way to get information out of somebody maybe isn't the same across everybody. Maybe we have to think and be adaptive in our research techniques to the types of people and the way that those people are best able to communicate to you. So I'm introducing a new word here. I'm calling adaptive research. So in other words, let's adapt our style to what works best for a given individual. I think that's where long-term, I think we went ahead. I don't necessarily have the exact answers on how to get there, but I think that should be our goal as an industry. So some other things, I talk about big qual. It's not just video. We've been doing a lot of work with biometrics, Fitbit data or other types of data that we can get. Doing a tremendous amount of work on facial emotional analytics, so using the webcam to measure your facial expressions and capture your emotions that way. Very helpful in ad research. I've been doing a bit of tests with voice tonality and voice analysis, which can give you other indications of emotions and the way people feel about things. Similarly, eye tracking is very helpful in evaluating websites and things like that. The video, as I mentioned, as well as pictures. We do capture a lot of pictures nowadays as well. Virtual reality has been around for a while as a technique that's mainly used for like online shopping type stuff, but it's starting to branch out, and I think we're going to see more and more of it for concept tests and other things. It's a very promising new research approach. And chatbots as well. We recently did a pilot with some chatbots that I found very interesting, where they're really starting to understand and can talk back to you using NLU, natural language understanding. Again, some of those are a few years out, but there's enough activity in the technology space that really technology-enabled research is going to be a big part of the future, a big part of mobile research, and a big way in which these qualitative techniques can be leveraged at scale, which will, again, I think, change the way we do research. So my general feeling is there's all of this, all of these ways of trying to understand what people are trying to convey to you. It's not just words. Words is a big piece of it, certainly. But you know, there's the emotions, which you can derive through measurements of facial expressions. You know, there's that voice tonality I was mentioning. There's background analytics. There are tools that analyze the background behind somebody that's talking that can be useful. That's a little ways off, but I've done pilot tests on it. And again, other biometrics. And so I think our real goal is to understand what all these different methods are telling us and try and make a more complete picture than we would have otherwise from just the words or just closed-end survey results. So the way that I'm positioning video is sort of across in 3 use cases, essentially. You know, as I say, at this point in time, it's really a subset of respondents. I don't think you want to do a video-only study unless you have a real reason to. But you take a tracker, for example. If you've got an ongoing tracker, you're asking questions, and it's nice to have a steady flow of respondents coming in. You know, and maybe every couple of months you might change the question for whatever is topical and of importance. So I think it can be very useful in a tracker. Similarly, if you're just doing an ad hoc study, it's easy enough to put in the video answer as a branch, like I said, instead of some open ends. And it gives you a bit more richness. And then, like I say, if you have a specific issue where it's typically out of the house or in the moment or one of those types of things, you may want to go with a pure video approach. It's just that it's going to cut down your available sample that are willing. And I'm not sure you're going to get a representative audience today if you just do video. So some of the reasons then why we want to use video, like I said, it's a better tool from an engagement perspective. It's great when you want to observe. I did a study on coffee preparation, and it was so much more interesting to have people pointing the camera and saying, this is how I make coffee every morning. This is what I do this, then I do this, then I do this. So it's great for usage types tests. I think it's got great usage for in-home use tests as well, IHUTs. At some point, the background, I did a sports one. It was really interesting how many people had sports banners in the background of their pictures, and sports paraphernalia, sports mugs. There's quite something in England. And then, like I said, I just think it gives you a deeper understanding. It's a much more dense data set. You get a lot more data to work with video than you do with other methods. So in summary, I think that video is really gaining as a way to communicate, and that I think it's going to continue to grow quite considerably over the next several years. Today, I'd say if you do a study, you're going to get about 25% of the people willing to do a video, and I expect that will grow considerably over the next several years as video usage becomes so commonplace in their daily life. They won't see anything unusual about that. So I think that short videos are going to become a standard component of surveys in the not-too-distant future as a way to complement other data sources. And I think that these new video data management tools are going to be specifically very helpful. I think most companies that you deal with will have them, and that the research companies will just have to work with them and download the data to them, and there they go. So I think you got to think about video as just another type of data. It can be coded like anything else. For quant people, video sounds intimidating, perhaps, because it's thought of like a qual element. But it really is just another type of data that can be transcribed, that can be coded, that can be processed, much like any other type of data. So my guess is that conservatively, within 5 years, I think about 1 out of every 4 projects will be using some sort of video capture as part of that research. Any questions?
Well, first of all, thanks for the presentation. you gave me just a couple of very good insights. The question is, how do you recruit people into a survey? Is it a panel or is it an ad hoc recruitment every time? What is this?
Yes, the question, I guess you heard it, how we recruit them into video. I'm a big believer in panels because there's a level of trust that is there. And so we invite people that are in the panel that have been doing surveys with us. And we say, hey, would you be willing to do a video? Here's a consent. And we have much better success. We've tried it with sort of river technology, and it doesn't work very well because they don't know, there's less trust there, I guess.
Do you panelists have to install an app, or it's done via Skype or whatever?
Another good question. So about 2 years ago, I tried to do this, and it just didn't work logistically. The integration of the survey system wasn't very good. So they had to take the video and then upload it into the survey, and it was maybe 25% of the time it worked. But in the last year or so, all the major survey systems have done a good job of figuring out how to integrate into the browser and be able to just connect in so that it's a seamless process where literally in the middle of the survey, after they've said yes, they're willing to do it, up comes an arrow and they just have to click on it and it starts recording, assuming the webcam's pointed. So people have webcams now and they're not afraid to use them to some extent. The technology is quite simple. So literally they click on it. When they're done, they hit the red square to stop recording, and that's all. That moves on with the survey. So it's really changed. Just in the last year, all the major survey systems have pretty much got it to work.
Franchise in Russia.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are ways to do it here as well.
Thank you very much, Frank. I think we have time for one more question, please. There are systems in Russia to capture video.
Thank you. Do you have experience of recording audio answers of respondents? They are lighter, easier to upload?
Very, very good question, yes. Again, a couple of years ago when I started down this path, I thought that it would make more sense for video response, or for responses, open-end responses, would be to go to audio. So voice to text, because the capabilities on every phone. And I started and I gave people the choice, audio or video. And a couple of years ago, the video wasn't working too well, but the audio was working pretty good. But as soon as we got the video working, people basically kind of, they don't see a difference, essentially. I thought that there's some people have a concern about showing their face on the camera. And so in some surveys, I say, you don't have to, we want to see how you make coffee. We don't care if you show your face. And it actually helped the collaboration rate. But my point, I guess, is that people are more comfortable. They're more, the webcam is on automatically. And sometimes they'll point the camera to the wall and we'll talk. And I consider that a valid response, actually, because it's more what they say that's important. So there are some people that are shy, but that's really only a small minority. Most people would rather just give you the video than try and do the audio. But we did test video, audio, and just texting, and very few people seem to choose audio only. Either they're willing to do it or they're not. And if they do, they'll give you the face.
Коллеги, ну что, я думаю, что вынуждены мы попрощаться с Фрэнком. Он на самом деле интересный спикер и может много об этом рассказывать. Frank, thank you very much. Really pleasure having you here. Thank you.